On the 16th of January 1809, Lieutenant General Sir John Moore was killed in the Battle of Corunna. In the early hours of the following morning, a group of red-coated men would have hurried through the streets of the town of Corunna in northeastern Spain. Their procession would have been devoid of fanfare and largely unnoticed, but was grim, for between them they carried Moore's body. 6 months of struggle had ended in this: a desperate rearguard action and the loss of their commanding officer. Moore's army had been successful in their battle on the 16th. They had managed to fend off the French, who had pursued them so ruthlessly through the brutally cold winter across the Galician mountains. In the midst of the fighting, Moore had been struck in the chest by a cannonball. His passing was slow and painful, living just long enough to hear that his troops had indeed held the line, and therefore knowing that his army would be able to escape back to Britain, whilst also being acutely aware that he would not. The moment of Moore's funeral was vividly captured in a poem by Charles Wolfe, published in 1817. And on the anniversary of the Battle of Corunna and Moore's death, we want to take the opportunity to pause and reflect on the words of that poem. This is The Burial of Sir John Moore after Corunna by Charles Wolfe. Not a drum was heard, not a funeral note, as his course to the rampart we hurried. Not a soldier discharged his farewell shot o'er the grave where our hero we buried. We buried him darkly at the dead of night, the sods with our bayonets turning, by the struggling moonbeam's misty light, and the lantern dimly burning. No useless coffin enclosed his breast, nor in a sheet nor in a shroud we wound him, but he lay like a warrior taking his rest, with his martial cloak around him. Few and short were the prayers we said, and we spoke not a word of sorrow, but we steadfastly gazed on the face that was dead, and we bitterly thought of the morrow. We thought as we hollowed his narrow bed and smoothed down his lonely pillow, that the foe and the stranger would tread o'er his head, and we far away on the billow. Lightly they'll talk of the spirit that's gone, and o'er his cold ashes upbraid him. But little he'll reck if they let him sleep on in the grave where a Briton has laid him. But half our heavy task was done when the clock struck the hour for retiring, and we heard the distant and random gun that the foe was sullenly firing. Slowly and sadly we laid him down, from the field of his fame fresh and gory. We carved not a line, and we raised not a stone, but we left him alone with his glory. Though nobody would have known it on that cold January night, Moore would be comparatively fortunate in the context of how his burial site was treated. A local Spanish general, the Marquis de la Romagna, paid for a monument to be erected over the site, and a memorial garden was later laid out around the grave. Moore's grave has become a site of memory, a place where people can go to pay their respects and reflect on the suffering and the sacrifice. As I've said many times on this show, and in my work as an ambassador, founder, and inaugural chair of the Napoleonic and Revolutionary War Graves charity, Moore is the exception, not the norm. Countless others died in these conflicts and did not have the dignity of a marked place in the ground. Those who made it back were in some cases acknowledged as heroes, and in other cases slipped into obscurity. If you would like to know more about the efforts of the Napoleonic and Revolutionary War Graves charity as they try to reconnect with that lost heritage, re-find those graves that have disappeared into the mists of time, and perhaps most importantly, ensure that all soldiers of this period have that dignity of a marked place in the ground, please do look into the efforts that they are undertaking on a daily basis. Head to www.nrwgc.com to find out more. More than anything else, I hope that Moore's example will help us all to reflect. On Armistice Day, we stand as one and proudly proclaim that we will remember them. Perhaps the time has come to think more holistically, more honestly, and more practically about how we do that. Maybe, to paraphrase Charles Wolfe describing the burial of Sir John Moore, we will carve not a line and raise not a stone. But are we going to leave these soldiers alone with their glory?